My name is Emma Richardson. I am 34 years old, and I live in the city of Chicago in the United States of America. I work as an account manager in a well-known digital marketing company. I obtained this job after many years of study and hard work. I grew up in a middle-class family that values discipline, work, and respect for the law. We were not a religious family, but we followed Western social traditions that focus on independence and self-reliance from an early age. I was born in a simple house in a quiet suburb. My father worked as an employee in an insurance company, while my mother worked as a nurse in a public hospital. I learned from them that success requires patience and organization, and that a person is responsible for their choices and their results. Since my childhood, I was a calm girl who loved reading and sports, and I always tried to be successful in my studies. I did not have many friends, but I chose my relationships carefully. I have one sister who is 3 years older than me. Her name is Sophia. She was different from me in personality. She loved social life, parties, travel, and meeting new people. Despite our differences, we spent a lot of time together, especially on weekends when we gathered around the dinner table with our parents. We celebrated birthdays and New Year's Eve in a traditional way, exchanged gifts, and took family photos. After I finished my university studies in business administration, I got an internship opportunity in a small company, and later I moved to a larger company. I worked long hours and focused on building my professional future. During that period, I believed that success at work was the path to stability and a comfortable life. I did not think much about marriage or romantic relationships because I believed it was still early to make such an important decision. But my life began to change when I turned 28 years old. At a professional conference held in a large hotel in the city center, I met a man named Michael Morgan. He worked as an engineer in a construction company, and he had a calm personality and an organized way of speaking. At first, we talked about work, then we discovered that we had common interests, such as traveling, exercising, and visiting new restaurants. Our acquaintance continued for several months. We used to meet in cafes after work and talk about our future plans. I felt safe and stable with him, and I began to seriously think about marriage. When I told my family about him, they welcomed him, especially my sister Sophia, who showed great interest in getting to know him. She asked me about him frequently and asked me to invite him to family occasions. At that time, I did not know that this calm beginning would later lead me to difficult events that would completely change my life and make me reconsider my trust in the people closest to me. This is my story, the story of a woman who believed that her family was the source of safety, then discovered that danger can come from inside the home itself. After about 1 year of getting to know Michael, we decided to take an official step toward marriage. Our decision came from a shared conviction that we were ready to build a stable life together. One evening, he invited me to a quiet restaurant in downtown Chicago and spoke to me honestly about his desire to get married. I agreed to his proposal after a short period of thinking because I saw him as a responsible man who was organized in his work and life. We started preparing for the wedding according to the Western traditions we were used to. We booked a small hall for the ceremony and invited family members and close friends. I chose a simple white dress from a well-known store, while Michael chose a formal black suit. On the day of the ceremony, the guests gathered in the hall. We exchanged vows in front of everyone, then we signed the civil marriage contract at the City Hall, which is the legal procedure in our area. After the ceremony ended, we moved to live in a new apartment in a quiet neighborhood close to my workplace. The apartment consisted of 2 bedrooms, a living room, and a kitchen. It was fully equipped with everything we needed to start our married life. During the first months, our life went normally. We woke up early in the morning, had breakfast together, and then each of us went to work. In the evening, we returned home, prepared dinner, and talked about the details of our day. After several months of marriage, Michael returned home one day carrying a small box. He told me that he had brought a cat to live with us in the house. He said that he loved raising animals since childhood and believed that having a cat at home creates a feeling of comfort. I opened the box and found a small gray cat that was calm and moved slowly around the room. I was not used to raising animals, but I accepted the idea out of respect for his wish. At the beginning, I got used to the presence of the cat in the house. It spent most of its time in the living room or near the window. We placed food for it in a special bowl and made sure to clean its place regularly. It did not cause any disturbance and slept for long hours during the day. But after a short period, I started to notice unusual things inside the apartment. On some nights, I heard light movement sounds in the hallway even though the cat was sleeping next to me in the bedroom. At first, I thought the sound was coming from neighbors in nearby apartments because the building was somewhat old and sounds could travel easily. As days passed, the sounds repeated at different times during the night. Sometimes I heard footsteps in the kitchen, and sometimes I heard a light scraping sound as if something was moving on the floor. I woke up from sleep, opened the bedroom door, and looked around, but I did not find anyone. I returned to bed and tried to sleep again, but the feeling of worry stayed with me. One night, I woke up because of a clear sound coming from the living room. I looked at the clock and saw that it was 2 o'clock after midnight. I got up quietly and moved toward the door. Michael was sleeping deeply, and the cat was lying near my feet on the bed. When I opened the door, I noticed that the hallway light was on even though I was sure that I had turned it off before sleeping. I walked slowly toward the living room and checked the place carefully. I did not find any person, and nothing appeared broken or moved. I turned off the light and returned to the bedroom, but I felt clear tension. The next morning, I told Michael what had happened. He smiled and said that the matter was normal and that old buildings sometimes. With time passing, my mental state started to change clearly. I was no longer the calm woman who slept deeply and woke up with energy. I became very anxious, easily stressed, and uncomfortable inside my own home even though it was supposed to be a place of safety and stability. I returned from work feeling tired, but I could not relax or enjoy my time as I used to. At first, I tried to ignore what was happening and told myself that it was just work pressure or temporary exhaustion. But as the events continued, anxiety began to control me more and more. I started to watch every movement in the house and listen to any sound, even small ones. I became afraid of nighttime because the problems usually started after everything became quiet. After a short period, I began to have repeated nightmares during sleep. I woke up suddenly in the middle of the night feeling strong fear and a fast heartbeat. On some nights, I dreamed that someone was watching me inside the house or that my bedroom door was opening slowly. When I woke up, I found myself alone in the dark, but the fear remained inside me for many hours. At the same time, I noticed a strange change in the behavior of the cat that my husband had brought home. In the first months, it was calm and stayed away from me. Later, it became aggressive toward me in an unusual way. It approached me suddenly and made sharp sounds as if it was annoyed by my presence. I tried to treat it gently and gave it food regularly, but its behavior did not change. The most disturbing thing happened while I was sleeping. On several nights, I woke up because of sudden pain in my hand or arm. When I turned on the light, I saw red scratches on my skin, and some of them were bleeding slightly. I looked around and found the cat close to me on the bed, staring at me directly. I felt fear and started to push it away from the room, but my husband objected and said that the cat was used to sleeping near us. With these incidents repeating, I started to sleep very carefully. I wrapped a thick blanket around my body and tried to keep the bedroom door closed, but the cat sometimes entered when my husband opened the door. Sleep was no longer comfortable for me. It became a time of tension. During that period, I also noticed a change in my husband's behavior. He began to move away from me gradually and avoided sitting with me for long periods. He no longer talked to me as before and spent more time outside the house. On some nights, he returned late without explaining the reason and only said that work took extra time. The most shocking moment for me happened when my husband decided to stop sleeping with me in the same room. One night, he told me clearly that he was no longer comfortable sleeping next to me and that my smell had become unpleasant to him. I felt shocked because I made sure to shower every day and use hygiene products regularly. I did not understand his words and asked him if he was joking, but he answered seriously. From that day on, he moved to sleep in another room inside the apartment. I tried to talk to him to understand the real reason, but he kept repeating the same statement, that he could not tolerate the smell. I started to doubt myself and visited a general doctor to make sure there was no medical problem, but all test results were normal. The doctor told me that I was healthy and that there was no medical reason for what my husband had said. As these events continued, my mental condition became worse. I felt that something unclear was happening in my life and that things were no longer normal as they were at the beginning of my marriage. I began to seriously think about discovering the truth, no matter how shocking it would be, because I could no longer tolerate the mystery surrounding me inside my own home. After about 2 years from the beginning of those events, my life reached a point where I could no longer continue. I was living in constant tension. My sleep became interrupted, and my appetite became very weak. I no longer enjoyed my work or meeting my friends. All my thinking was focused on what was happening inside the house and on the behavior of the cat, which had become a real source of fear for me. During that period, one of my relatives suggested that we seek help from a specialist to examine the situation in the house and understand the strange behavior of the cat. My husband agreed without enthusiasm because he believed the problem was simple, but I insisted on knowing the truth. The specialist came to our home and spent several hours observing the cat and asking us about all the details that had happened during the past 2 years. After observation and discussion, we were told that the cat had a severe behavioral disorder and that its aggressive actions could be the result of previous stress or trauma before it came to our house. We were advised to take the cat to a veterinary clinic for a full medical examination. We followed that advice and took the cat to a specialized veterinarian. The doctor performed several tests and confirmed that the cat was suffering from extreme stress and instability in behavior. Despite these explanations, the problems inside the house did not stop. The cat continued to attack me repeatedly and scratched me while I was sleeping or when I came close to it. I started to feel unsafe inside my own home. Fear became a daily feeling. I began to cry without a clear reason, felt constant anxiety, and lost my ability to concentrate at work. After some time, my psychological condition became very serious. I visited a mental health doctor, and after several sessions, I was diagnosed with a psychological disorder caused by continuous stress and fear. I was given medication and advised to stay away from sources of pressure and tension. At that stage, I began to hate my house because it was connected in my mind with fear and pain. My relationship with my husband became worse day after day. There was no real communication between us, and arguments became frequent. He blamed me for the situation, and I felt that he did not support me when I needed him the most. With time, our marriage reached a final point. One evening, we sat together and spoke honestly about our future. We realized that continuing the marriage was no longer possible under these conditions. My husband decided to divorce me, and I accepted the decision because I no longer had the strength to continue living that life. After the divorce, I packed my belongings and left the apartment where I had lived through years of fear and tension. I returned to live with my parents in the family home. At the beginning, I felt sadness and shock, but living with my family gave me a sense of safety that I had lost for a long time. Continuous fear and psychological pressure can destroy stability inside any home. Ignoring problems for a long time can lead to serious consequences. Support from family and attention to mental health are necessary to rebuild life again and start a new beginning.